online. Thanks everyone for being here in person. Um, we'll start on our backs or start seated. Whew. Yeah, heads up. It's one of those days for me. You ever have one of those days where your left side and your right side get a little confused? Up is a little confusing from down. So bear with me, but I think we can get through the 45 minutes together. So we'll start maybe we just need some, or I need some grounding. So we'll start in a nice, supportive, easy shape. Of course, if sitting in a chair or sitting on the floor is more supportive than being on your back, please, please feel free to sit in a chair or sit upright. If you're on your back, you can let your knees bend. Bending your knees will help release some tension out of your lower back. And with that, we'll take just a couple moments here to intentionally find some physical stillness. Just letting our bones, letting our skeletons be nice and still. Using the earth beneath all of us to help us feel stable and supported. From your connection to the ground, to the earth, drawing your awareness inward to your breathing. So deep breathing is breathing internally. It's giving yourself a moment to feel the breath. Feeling your inhale, feeling your exhale. You don't have to explain the feeling. It doesn't have to make any sort of cognitive, logical sense, just feeling your breath. And this gentle reminder that you have total agency and choice over your practice. So if something doesn't feel supportive or safe, please, please back out. Or no, you can always come back. If this shape, if being here more present with your breath is supportive, you can always come back anytime to being in your body with your breath, to feeling the earth, to letting the earth help support you. And we'll take maybe 20, 30 seconds here in silence. And from a place of curiosity and kindness, checking back in, just noticing what you notice. If your mind totally wandered off, that's what minds do. You can bring it back. Maybe you bring it back 1,000 times in the next half an hour. That's practice. So just bringing your mind back. Feel one more inhale, one more exhale. And then let's take your arms up towards the ceiling. So if your knees aren't bent, let's go ahead and bend your knees and come onto your backs. So on your back, bend your knees, bring your arms up towards the ceiling and just let your arms feel nice and heavy towards the back of the shoulders, which might help you feel nice and wide across the shoulders, across the back ribs. We're just going to start with the arms. So you can take your arms out wide like T's and then bring them up towards the ceiling. Now you can imagine you have some cables or some weight. And so adding this idea of resistance or internal resistance, this would feel very different if you had 20 pounds in each hand. It would feel really different if you even had 5 pounds. So we'll do 2 more. You can vary that weight, right? So you don't have to do it super, super hard. Maybe you just add a little bit of resistance. Try to keep your spine down on the floor. So next time you take your arms out into a T, pause and see here as you come back into your body, if you can feel your heart space and then the back of the heart nice and heavy and grounded and the back of your ribs down into the earth. So trying not to pop your ribs up towards the ceiling, letting the ribs feel and use the earth to help ground you. With an exhale, sweep your arms back up towards the ceiling. Now bring your knees up over your hips. Slide your hands onto the back of your hamstrings and give yourself 5 hamstring stretches. So just letting your legs bend and straighten a couple times. You can add resistance again. Imagine you're pulling and pushing a little bit of weight. Maybe imagine you're in some water. And then next time your legs are a little straighter than bent, just pause. Check in with the front of your hip creases. Okay, so you don't need to be super duper tight in the front of the hips. If you're feeling a lot of tension in the front of the hips, bend your knees a little bit. And then taking your arms up towards the ceiling. So feeling what you can't see, you don't get to see the back of your shoulders, your ribs, or your hips. So keep those points down on the floor. We're going to go symmetrical first. Take all the limbs out wide and then pull them back up towards the ceiling. 2 more, out nice and wide. And then back. Next time you go wide, hold out nice and wide for just a couple of breaths. So you're going to hold your legs out like a V, and then you're going to externally rotate your legs. So roll your knees and toes out. Feel that external rotation. And then draw your awareness back to your back, what you can't see. You don't get to see your shoulders, the back ribs, or the hips. Ground down. And then bring all the limbs back up towards the ceiling. Asymmetrical. So right leg goes out, left arm goes out. Exhale, come back in. Left leg, right arm out to the side. Back in. Follow your own breath. For me personally, if I go really slow and I imagine my limbs are really heavy, that's more challenging. So you just want to control the movement. Want to be mindful and in your body as you go. So we'll do 2 more with each limb. Nice. As I look around the room, it looks like everyone's really nice and stable and connected to their back bodies. And then we'll bring all the limbs up and lower everything down. Whew. And just take a moment to come back. So arms and legs come back. Might feel really nice to once again connect and just feel the floor. There's the earth. Just letting the earth hold you up. Let your body rest down into the ground. We'll take 3 breaths. And feel your full exhale. Feel your inhale when it comes. Great. And then let's roll over to tabletop. So as you roll over to tabletop, if you're at home and your wrists are a little funky, remember you can always come up to a chair or a table, and that'll change the weight load in the wrists, which might really help. If you're in the room, we don't have chairs or tables, sorry. But we're gonna warm up the wrists a little bit, so maybe that'll help. So you're basically taking that constructive rest shape we were just in, and you're flipping it over, and it's going to be a little more challenging because you don't get the ground to help you to define your back. So here now, defining your back in space or in air. So you have the back of your head, and then you're going to go wide. Remember feeling the back of the shoulders on the floor, the ribs, and the back of your pelvis, hips. So just give yourself a moment to try and connect back to muscle memory of those places. And then, yeah, like a table, you want to feel nice and strong. So you're going to draw your spine a little more up, draw your navel up a little more. Like there's a magnet on the ceiling pulling your spine up, push the floor away. Great. And then we're going to walk around on your hands. This is just your thing. You're going to walk your hands back and forward. Just shift the load on the wrists, going slow. You can walk way, way out and way, way back. You can shift the shoulders forward, the hips forward, and really change the load around on your hands. Yeah, and it's really nice. I see as I look around too, people are flipping their palms. So you might flip your palm and walk around on your knuckles a little bit. Try and keep that spine like it's going up to the ceiling. Try not to sag into the spine, okay? That'll help keep you aware of that rectangular core area. And you might come back to palms. You might do some external rotation, like rotating your arm bones away so your fingers face your knees. And just moving from a place of curiosity. So you're going to move around. Your body's going to respond. Being gentle, kind to your wrists, to your arms. We'll stay here about 2 or 3 more breaths. So just a little bit longer. And then you'll walk back to your table. So you can definitely keep your hands on the floor. You can look down and get really strong fingers. If your wrists are still bugging you a little bit, or you just want some different variety, come down onto your elbows and build like an elbow table. Okay, so forearm elbow table or straight arm table, and feel again your back body for just a moment. See if your shoulders, ribs, hips can feel level, more like a rectangle. And you're going to keep your right toes on the floor and push your right leg straight back. Okay, notice if your right hip popped up. Try and let your right hip be about the same height as your left leg. Left hip, I should say, and then you're going to lift and lower your right leg 3 times. Push that heel back out of your right ear, out of your shoulder. So you want that right leg to feel really long, and then when it lifts up, see if you can just feel your leg in space and only have it about as high as your hip. So we have to use some proprioception, which can be pretty challenging, feeling your body in space. And then you're going to do a couple curls. You're going to bring your heel to your butt. Keep your core nice and strong. Try not to let your ribs drop to the floor. 3 little hamstring curls. And then when your right knee's bent the 3rd time, pull your knee back under and rebuild your table. Do 1 cat-cow. Remember, cat-cow is where you round your spine. And then you find some extension through your thoracic spine. You look forward and up. And then we come back and build that table. All right, give yourself a couple breaths. Build your foundation of your table. Come down on your elbows if you need to. Curl your left toes, left leg goes back. Feel the left leg. You don't get to see it. So you're feeling your body out. You're going to lift and lower that left leg 3 times. Try not to sag your belly button to the floor. Keep your belly button up in your body. Keep your low back going up towards the ceiling. When your left leg's about as high as your hip, pause. You don't get to see that left leg. Can you feel that left heel push out of the left ear? And then 3 hamstring curls. The third curl, you bring the knee back down to the floor. Couple choices, maybe cat-cow. Maybe you want to just take a break and go back to a child's pose. So you could do 2 cat-cows and then push back to child's pose. And I remember, you know, child's pose isn't for everyone. So you might just come up to sitting. You might stay in tabletop. 5 breaths to come back to that earth grounding meditation. So back to a shape that supports you, lets your bones find some stillness, and lets you feel the earth. And we'll be quiet and listen to the breath. Good. Follow your exhale. And then with your inhale, pull yourself back up to tabletop. Little more challenging, floating table, okay? You curl your toes and you just lift your knees. Okay. Little more challenging, you pick. You can push your hips way back and then come forward to like a plank and push way back. So you have some options, right? You can stay in table and breathe. You could take floating table. You could take this more challenging place where you're pushing back and coming to plank. And then we all lower back down. Maybe you come back to seated. Maybe you push back to child's pose. Maybe you roll on your back and draw your knees in. And then we take about 5 more breaths just to be really quiet, to come back, to feel your body on the earth. Being quiet allows you to hear your body breathe. And feeling your exhale, feeling your inhale. With your next exhale, we all figure out our tabletop again. Again, you could be in a straight arm table. We're going to move to downward facing dog from here. So you could either be in your straight arm table or you can practice this down on your forearms for variety, for something different. Then we lift the hips up and we take the thigh bones back and build your downward facing dog. Okay. So as you're building your down dog, either with straight arms or from your forearms, feel free pedaling out the feet a little bit. Maybe you bend both knees really deep and then work on pushing the hip creases back a little bit. Taking a moment, once you build that down dog, if you feel like putting that dog in some stillness, holding the skeleton intentionally still. And then sometimes the most challenging is to let your face and your chest relax. So can you just let your head hang and look back at your legs and take 2 deep breaths. Recognizing your exhale. And then with your inhale, we'll start to walk your feet up to your hands. So take your time, there's no hurry. Great. And then when you get all the way on up to standing, we're actually going to start at the back of the mat. We're going to walk back. Just give yourself a moment to build your strong standing mountain. So strong standing mountain from the inside out. And then 3 breaths. And then bringing your hands up to your hip creases. So before we fold way over, let's bend your knees a little bit and just practice moving through the pelvis first. So as you tip over, it's a little more like flat back style, even though you're honoring your neutral spine and coming back up. Okay. So let's just lubricate the pelvis a little bit, tipping forward. Should not cause a lot of pain, issues in your hamstrings or your low back. So if it does, bend your knees more, okay? Then this time when you go over to that more tabletop-like place, just pause for a moment. Now, as your shoulders go lower, you're going to have to round your low back a little bit. So go kind of slow and see if you can feel a little stretch, but keep that strength and tone in the low belly. So it's like you're pulling your navel up, you're keeping tone as you stretch and lengthen. There has to be a little bit of rounding in the low back. So be mindful of that. And then press through the feet and come all the way back up. I'm going to do it one more time. Little bend in the knees. Hip creases draw back. See if you can start to feel where that low back starts to round and you can really connect into the strength of the low, deep belly. Come all the way down. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, we have to walk your hands out to downward facing dog. Bend your knees, build your downward facing dog. Remember, if you're at home or in your office, you can use a table or a chair for your down dog. If you're here, if this is a little much, you can always go up by a wall and use the wall. Exhale, we're going to lower back down to tabletop. A little bit quicker now, build your table, take your right leg back, take your left arm forward. 3 times, see if you can lift and lower the limbs, keeping that spine really steady. Try not to let the spine sink to the floor. Keep the spine going up to the ceiling. Then bring the limbs back. Good, downward facing dog. Exhale, table. Left leg goes back. Right arm comes forward. Okay, try not to let your spine sink as you lift opposite arm, opposite leg 3 times. Bringing the limbs back down. Now pausing. Picking here, you might want a little different challenge. You might want something different than dog. If you want dog, go straight up and back. If you want, hang out in floating table, or maybe you come back to that floating table plank movement. So we're all going to take about 5 breaths. Down dog, floating table, or this floating table plank movement. Then back to downward facing dog. Or maybe you want a child's pose. We're going to be quiet for 3 breaths. Feeling your next breath, recognizing, noticing what you're noticing. This time we're going to walk your feet up to your hands. Press down, inhale, come all the way on up. Exhale, hands to your side. Great, let's step your feet wide. Okay, we're going to work a little more in your lateral, outer, and inner hip area. Okay, so defining your hips, so you can put your hand up on that pelvic bowl. And let's just do about 5 sumos, just go up and down so you can feel the difference. There's your legs, there's your pelvis. Fabulous. And then we're going to come back up. Now this time when you go down into your sumo, push your thigh bones back. So feel your thigh bones push back as your knees go forward over your middle toes. That's going to open that front hip a little more. You might feel it a little more in the back hip. Great. And then we're going to come up. We're going to go a little bit side to side. So it's a sumo down. And then you're going to push off on your right leg. So it's like half a sumo. Come back to sumo. Push off on the left leg. Back to sumo, stand up. Good, go down to sumo. You can't do it wrong. to the left. Sumo to the right. Back. Come on up. Good. One more to the left. Sumo to the right. Back. Come on up. Sweet. And then steer your toes and knees a little more, just so they're pointing a little more in the same direction. Great. Feel the ground again. Give yourself 3 breaths. So back to that earth grounding meditation idea. Can you feel the earth help stabilize, support you? And then with your breath, pull your hip creases back, push your butt back, wide leg forward fold. So you can stop wherever you want. Maybe your shoulders come down, down, down. Maybe your shoulders stay up a little bit higher. There is no rule that says you have to drop your shoulders lower than your hips. Feel out the shape, and when you're ready, push into your feet and come all the way back up. All right, your challenge this time is to bring the weight a little more into the balls of your feet and your toes. Now, as you fold forward, keep the weight in the toes and the balls of the feet and push your butt back. That's going to require a little more low, deep abdominal work. Okay, pause wherever you are, bring the weight forward, almost like you are going to feel like you're falling forward. If you have to lift your heel, a piece of paper, do it. That's going to really challenge you. Try not to lock your knees. Awesome. Fold as far as you feel comfortable in your low back and your hamstrings. Inhale, lift your chest. And then you're going to do like a yoga crawl. You're going to walk your hands to the front, the feet to the back of your mat or your chair, and do a downward facing dog. Exhale, lower down to your knees and pause for a moment. Decide if you want to be on your hands or down on your elbows and figure that piece out and build that shape. And then pull your shoulders forward a little bit and push your shoulders back. 2 more. Keep that spine really strong. Try not to let your ribs drop to the floor. Keep your ribs drawing up and in. Try to keep your low back feeling like it's going up to the ceiling. Great. When your shoulders feel like they're stable over your wrists, or if you're down on your forearms, a little more over your elbows, pause. Hold the shape. We're going to be quiet so you can feel 3 breaths. You're just going to notice in your body where you feel the breath and breathe there. And then your challenge is either a downward facing dog or an elbow forearm dog, or maybe your challenge is to just kick back and rest for a little bit. You're going to take 3 to 5 breaths in whatever shape you pick. Again, nice and quietly so you can feel the breath. You pick where you feel it. We'll be quiet so you can hear your body breathe. Okay, exhale, lower down. Push back into a child's pose or a seated pose. And give yourself a moment to breathe and rest and feel the earth. And with a little more intention, can you bring awareness to the breath in your back body? Right, again, you don't get to see your back body. You're to feel the back body through your breathing. 3 breaths. Nice, and then back to tabletop. Really quick downward facing dog, just enough to get your hips up and back so we can start to walk your feet up to your hands. And all the way back up to standing mountain. So here in your standing mountain, this again, your body in space, feeling your ears over your shoulders. over your ribs and your hips. Almost called my ribs my hips. All right, so when you bend your knees and you tip, can you feel this like a rectangle? It doesn't have to be like this perfect symmetrical rectangle, but we don't really want to roll like this, right? And we don't want to necessarily go like this. So trying to keep these places more in a straight line, just try to fold forward, just shoulders coming forward and go back up, maybe like 2 or 3 times, just working a little more from, maybe we would label it like organic symmetry. Doesn't have to be exact, but there is an understanding of midline. So now when we come up, we're going to just take this idea into a lunge, okay? So you're going to step your left leg back. If you're at home and you need something to balance, go by that object to help you balance. Back to that idea symmetry. So you've just thrown in a challenge because you stepped a leg back. But you have your ears, your shoulders, ribs, and hips. And you're going to just lean forward a little bit. And we'll just do 2. And on your second one, you're going to hold it. You could keep your hands on your hips, or you could bring your hands together at your sternum, and we're going to take 3 quiet breaths. Again, you'll notice where you feel your breath, and that's where you can focus the breath, focus your awareness. With your inhale, bring that back up to that high lunge and step the left foot forward. Give yourself 3 breaths just because it's, you know, a nice gesture to your left side. Give it a little break. Symmetry in your understanding. And we step the right foot back. So your right heel stays up nice and high. Your left knee bends to your capacity, and then ears, shoulders, ribs, hips. So even though I went out of order with the cue, you want to move from your hip first. So let's go hip, rib, shoulder, ear, and then hold that. And maybe hands come to your heart. Maybe they stay at your hips, 2 or 3 breaths. And then we come back on up and step the feet together. 3 breaths just to reconnect to the floor. Great, here, let's add on, right? Left leg steps back. Build that high lunge. Tip on over. Now, if you're coming over and you feel like the challenge, put your hands down on the floor. Slide your shoulder blades down out of your ears and shift the weight, and maybe start to lift the back leg up a little bit. So you can keep your fingertips on the floor. Coming towards a warrior 3, maybe one hand comes on your leg, maybe both legs, or hands come on your right leg. Just find a challenge. Meet yourself where you are. And then we come back to the low lunge. We're actually going to step back to downward facing dog. Come forward to tabletop. You choose. Maybe you do a cat-cow. Maybe you do a down dog, floating table, or the floating table plank movement. 5 breaths. Moving, breathing from the inside out. And then back we meet downward facing dog. 3 or 4 breaths. Notice where you feel your breath in your body. Great, we got to walk your feet up to your hands, so go nice and slow. Great, when you get there, inhale and use your inhale to help pull you all the way back up. Hands come down into your hips. Just give yourself a moment. Line things up. Hips, ribs, shoulders, ears. All right, second side, step your right leg back. High heel. So keep that back heel up. Right, try and keep those hips under the ribs. Tip. Maybe you stay right here and put your hands on your thigh bones. It's your progression. Meet yourself where you are. You can always go really slow. Just build the shape. Maybe your right leg comes up. Maybe it doesn't. It's okay to wobble. If you're feeling a little insecure in the wobble, remember the ground. Plug into the earth. Right? Appreciate the wobble. It means you're alive. Couple more breaths. And the right leg comes down. Step back, downward facing dog. Woohoo! Nice job, everybody. This can be really hard. Downward facing dog. And then we're going to drop your knees. And this time we're going to find your chest and pull it forward and up. And then we're going to lower all the way down to prone mountain on your belly. So I can't get my forehead really close to the floor like you can, but you can put your head all the way down, forehead down, and then just float it up a little bit. And let your hands rest down by your outer ribs. And bring your legs pretty close together. And give yourself a couple breaths to let your chest release into the floor. Stabilizing your shoulder blades on your back so you can feel the shoulder blades nice and strong on your back. We're going to move your spine. So inhale, lift your chest, look up a little bit, baby cobra, and exhale, lower down. So nice and stable through the low back. So that navel to spine idea as you lengthen to lift and lower down. Great, 3 or 4 more. So just moving with your breath, lifting the spine, lowering the spine. How long can you feel from the crown of your head to your toes? Great, next time you come up, pause. As you lift up, can you feel the breath now way up underneath your shoulder blades? Maybe feel the breath a little more wrapped around your armpits into the tip tops of the collarbones and the lungs. Long neck, soft gaze. You got it. Exhale, lower down. Hands can come underneath your forehead. And then we just let the earth hold you up again. And you can have a moment to really breathe into your back. Let's give ourselves 3 breaths. And then again, with curiosity and kindness, notice what you notice. Okay, if your mind drifted off, just gently bring it back. Back to your body breathing. And we're going to roll all the way over onto your back. I'm going to draw your knees into your chest and just rock a little bit side to side. So as you're rocking a little bit side to side, check in. Should not hurt your back. Sometimes when I rock side to side, I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good. Okay, so make sure it doesn't feel painful or tense or too tight anywhere. If it does, stop. You're going to put your left leg back down on the floor and you're going to have your left knee bent. We're going to bring your right leg up to the ceiling. And when your right leg goes up to the ceiling, roll your right leg away so your knee and your toes go away from you. And then bend the right knee and place it on the left thigh bone. Try not to use your arms. You can put your arms down by your side. See how this feels in your right hip. If you want more, you're going to pick up your left knee or left leg technically and stack your left knee over your left hip. So it's like a supine pigeon pose. It's like a figure 4 hip stretch. If you want a little different challenge, take your right thigh bone, keep it right in this shape and just push your thigh bone towards the bottom of the mat a little bit. So your outer hip kind of spins open and you're pressing that thigh bone away from you, okay? Pay attention so you can respond to the stretch. 3 exhales. And feel out your next exhale and release both legs down. Just give yourself an inhale, exhale. Excellent. Second side, taking your left leg up. Give it a little external rotation. We did this at the very beginning of class and cross it over your right thigh bone. See how it feels first in the left hip. And then maybe you pick up the right leg and the right knee comes over the right hip. Kind of check out how it feels. You might press that left thigh bone away towards the end of your mat. Just letting the back ribs be nice and wide. So all your awareness might be in your hips. Bring some of that awareness into the back ribs. And then again, releasing the back ribs into the floor. Softening the chest and the throat and the eyes. We'll take a breath. And exhale, let everything come back down. Great. Using the earth, feel your spine on the earth and take a full body stretch. So as you stretch, try and keep your spine really heavy on the floor. Just stretch it out. We always take the last couple minutes of class for self-care. An opportunity to come back in with intention and awareness. So you could feel the ground beneath you. Checking in with your physical body, your breathing body, your energy body. We'll just take the last minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes here in silence. So if you want to do some stretching or some meditation, just being really nice and quiet, take care of yourself. We'll practice the next couple minutes in silence. From a place of kindness and curiosity. Again, notice what you notice. Returning back to the earth, feeling the ground, the earth behind you, below you, supporting you. Just using this feeling to connect into your breathing. We'll take 2 full inhales and 2 full exhales. And when you feel your next exhale, just wiggle your toes. That's it. Like, what's it feel like? And then just wiggle your fingers. Sweet, and draw your knees into your chest. Maybe you rock a little bit, just feeling out your body. Let your body move for you. And we'll roll all the way over and come on up to sitting. We'll take your arms out in front, interlace your hands and reach up and give yourself a nice side back stretch. Just lift those back ribs up. Happy Friday. Thanks everyone for showing up. It's really good to see everybody. Thanks everybody online. Have a fabulous week. See you Tuesday.